Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for the Alien Invasion expansion for On Mars. This is specifically going to be going over the cooperative version. If you watch the run-through, we did the Outbreak chapter. And a few years back, I did On Mars for the channel as a solo variant, but I played it with a buddy of mine.
Right.
So we actually played it cooperatively then, because prior to that, we had played On Mars multiple times, but always felt that it's like, this feels like it should be cooperative.
Right.
Like, a lot of the mechanisms in the competitive are like, well, I can use your techs. I can use your buildings, like if I have a scientist.
Right.
So you share a lot, but it's still whoever has the most points, so it's like, well, why go through the rigmarole of making it semi...
You're paying them, but it's never a lot.
Yeah.
When you use someone else's stuff.
It's like, you don't even really pay them. It's just, you get a win from the supply. Like, I don't have to pay you anything.
If you use a scientist on someone else, they can take that executive action for free as well. So, but again, it's still one of those things, it's like, it's weak on the cost. Like, it doesn't cost me almost anything to do it. Right.
It's like, it's one of those, I mean, it is a nice element of On Mars, because it is a very tight game that you could, this game would be awful if people could gridlock techs. Oh, I'm going first, I get this, only I can build. You know, it's like, oh, that would be super shitty. So, when this expansion was announced, I was very excited, because I was like, oh, yeah, perfect, okay, a cooperative expansion, that makes sense. But then he made it somewhat cooperative. Right. Where Chapter 1 is one versus many, and then Chapter 2 and 3 are cooperative, and then Chapter 4 is solo.
Right.
I don't care much for the cooperative.
Nope, I didn't. I agree with you. I thought I was going to enjoy the cooperative more because I felt the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get the conceptual is you're all buying for what I call power, prestige points.
Opportunity points.
Opportunity points, yeah. Which makes sense, so you're still cooperating with each other, but it's that vie for power inside a corporate office.
Right, yeah. Whoever's going to step on the others to climb the corporate ladder.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what the base game felt like to me.
Mm-hmm.
But in the cooperative, it felt like we knew exactly what we needed to accomplish.
Yeah.
I knew how to accomplish it from the beginning of the game. And it was mostly just managing the resources to accomplish the goal.
Right. Yeah, so here's where I'm at. I think, and I mean, call me biased or whatever, I think if you want to play this cooperatively, play the solo variant with someone else.
Right.
I mean, because here's why I actually don't like the expansion. The theme of it there being an outbreak, whatever.
Sure.
Like, the first version, Chapter 1, is about someone playing aliens attacking.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like that would have been a lot more fun cooperative.
Right.
Why make... It was just weird. It's like, okay, you put your eggs in too many baskets where it's like, oh, I'm going to do one versus many. I'm going to do cooperative. It's now solo. And now it's like, okay, so now you have all those and none of them are good.
Right.
Yeah, and then just so the outbreak, it's kind of like, I think this was announced right around COVID. He's like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that on Mars. But here's why I actually don't like the cooperative nature as much as I was excited about. Because you do nothing with the other game components.
Right.
We didn't build... I mean, yeah, you built one mine that let you do... But that was really... It's like you kind of use that other stuff to assist you in this overall objective. You got that one specifically because it was an executive action to build buildings, which we needed for that mission.
Right.
But, like, all I did was get my tech all the way up. You know, get the building.
Because it was an objective.
Because it was an objective, but it's like, I didn't feel like I was creative. I didn't feel like I was actually doing any... I wasn't really playing On Mars.
That's what I kind of meant by, I felt like from the beginning, we had the solution. It was just, how do we get to that solution?
Right.
Where, like, when we played On Mars just competitively, it was, well, you're doing this, and I'm doing this, and I have to change my plan because of this.
Right.
Here was, like, it literally was, it wasn't fed, but was, I know how the problem needs to be solved, and it's just, do we have the resources, the time management skills to do it?
Yeah. And that was really the only thing. It's like, I thought the infection check was kind of there, but based off the rules, it doesn't say, like, anything about that they can't work.
Right.
Like, that would be a little bit different. If it was like, oh, they're infected, you can't use them.
Right.
It's more like, if you're gonna use them, that runs the risk of it infecting other people, and then it speeds up this track. I think at the highest, we might have been at 8 or 9.
But some of it was also, like, we got to the point, like, very early on, you had a building that could produce medicine, I got a building that produced medicine. So every time we went back, we were producing medicine.
Yeah.
Collecting these cards, produce more medicine.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it kind of got to the point, it's like, because I thought, oh, medicine's a really scarce resource, and then I was like, it's not.
No, not really.
I mean, I have a stack of it. I have 4 medicines right now.
Right. And then, so it's kind of like, okay, well, we never felt a need to build resources. We never felt a need to get the techs for the things, because all we need to do is just bump this up to level 2, and then now we have our 3rd building out. We don't... You're never looking at what the other blueprints are.
Nope.
Why would you? That's not how you're going to win.
Right.
So you're playing this expansion, and you're just kind of omitting everything else.
Right.
And
I got this this one, I remember, because I had an infected, and so it was just to move someone over.
Oh, yeah.
To keep them off infected, because I knew I was going to back over, so they were going to pop back into here.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's the reason, because there's no negative. Like,
yeah.
The advantage, at least with on Mars, was you take too many blueprints, it's minus points if you don't complete them.
Right.
Here, it's like, no, some of these times I should actually, like, I got extra resources. I didn't need that extra tree, but it was going to infect someone if I didn't push them over.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so why wouldn't I just do it?
Or you, like, sometimes it's like, because ships are points at the end, and it's like sometimes an LSS objective is a bunch of points depending on how many ships you have. It's like, do I really want to burn that? Like, do I want to, like, lose 3 points to jump over it? Well, yeah, sure. And then cooperative. Who cares?
Yeah. It's now the use of the many, whatever benefits the many, you just spend it.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the solo variant, there's obviously an AI that's running around, taking spots, taking text, taking blueprints, gaining points the entire way, because you're still getting points. So you're still utilizing playing the actual game.
Right.
But then if you just play with someone else, then you just try and do your best together to try and beat the AI.
Right.
And I remember someone commenting on that video going, why are you playing with someone else? It's supposed to be solo. And I'm like, because I do what I want. And why does it, like, really? That's going to upset you?
You're playing against an AI. Whether you play 4 people against one AI as one faction, it's not like 4 individual people are playing against one AI.
Right.
It's one faction, one team is playing against an AI.
Right. And so, and I thought it was fun. I think we might have even still lost, if I remember. But if we won, it wasn't by, like, a landslide.
Right.
Because the AI in these games are still rough.
Right.
But in here, it was like, there wasn't even any, like, outside sources. There wasn't, like, aliens attacking, or there wasn't, like, anyone there to take up spots where it's like, it was just more of, oh, who's getting infected. Like, the infection deck was so lame.
Right.
I was like, okay, flip it over. He's infected now.
Because they got infected, and it was like, but it doesn't really prevent me from doing anything.
Right.
I do think it would have been a completely different game if you couldn't use those workers that were infected.
I looked it up. I was like, okay, let me just double check that. And it says, nope, you still use them as the cost, and then if they get sent back to you, they're still infected if they hop off. So it's like, okay. So the risk is meant to be, if I use this infected worker to go somewhere, then that's just that kind of infects that area.
Right.
So if you send a healthy worker there, then they get infected.
Right.
I think, and then the fact that, I have, if you had all your people, out, and then you had one infected in a group of 3, then they're all infected, and that ramps up the track.
Right.
But
there are so many ways to mitigate that, like taking a little bit unuseful actions to get rid of that or put a worker out wherever it was going to affect the least amount.
Yeah.
You could see that. It was plannable.
Yeah. You can almost you game the game.
Right. And that's where I felt like this one was, where, like, normal on Mars, I don't feel like you can plan incredibly far in advance. This one, we kind of planned far in advance.
Yeah, it was kind of... I mean, it did have its moments of, like, if I do this, and you do this, and you do this, so we were able to play cooperatively.
Right.
I just didn't really find it all that fun.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I'm happy it was as short as it was.
That's also true. Yeah, that was my initial concern. I was like, it was whenever we got to like 6, and I was like, is this advancing too quick? And then then we were able to kind of like math it out and go, oh no, actually I can do this. You can do that, and that's that. I almost feel like there should be 3 objectives. 3
objectives, or like these cards move the timer. And so you can't game the game.
Yeah.
Honestly, to me, that would have been better.
Yeah.
Because, again, I agree. We hit 6, like I saw 12. It's like, okay, this is not super long, but it's still a lot of turns between us. And then it got to 6, it's like, man, we've done a lot. Like, Seth is almost done with that. We have 2 of these. We literally just got to get that refreshed.
Yeah.
It's a question, can we get it refreshed, grab it, and then build again? And are we good? And then, you're reminded... We don't need to make compounds, which, again, even when I was playing the base, I was like, oh, you gotta always build compounds.
Right.
Like, it's like,
and
no,
you saw me
don't.
not doing that. And
right.
You're like, yeah.
You don't have to. Because
there's no progress cubes.
Right, because we went and, like, I specifically went and grabbed extra one, and we were even saying, it's like, why didn't you grab more? It's like, why did we grab them to begin with?
Yeah, you don't, and that also bugs me, because it's like, I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be kind of a chapter-esque story, even though the opening cinematic, like, reading thing referenced Chapter 1.
Right.
But they don't connect to each other, so it's not like how well you do in Chapter 1 is going to affect how well you do in Chapter 2 and 3 and 4. It's just story-wise, but even then it's just...
It's a light story.
Yeah, barely. It's like, after that alien invasion, now there's an outbreak. It's like, okay, whatever.
Right. So
I would have much rather... I guess it is module. I just don't know why he called them chapters.
Right.
I think that's just kind of weird. But yeah, like, I think there's just something about regular on Mars, because it is, at the end of the day, competitive to where how well I do is going to get me the most points, and then I might be able to win. And then this is just missing that portion.
Yeah.
And I do think that going the outbreak route is probably... I think I don't like it as a cooperative theme for this game.
Right, I agree.
The alien invasion should have been... That should have been a cooperative one. What's the 3rd chapter? I don't remember.
And it's still...
Blackout.
It's still big. It's still complex. And so... I don't feel like it changed the game enough to make me want to play cooperative again.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, I would recommend On Mars to anyone who likes heavy Euro games. I think it's extremely solid. But if someone's like, "Oh, there's an expansion, should I get it?" No,
I don't. No. At least with this one taste of it,
the one chapter. But I think it's also weird that if you're trying to sell someone on this expansion, it's like they're not buying On Mars to play cooperative.
Right.
And they're not playing it if they really like the Outbreak theme.
Right.
Why would you recommend On Mars in this expansion and not Pandemic?
Right.
So the chapter doesn't work, and then it's like, I want to play, a heavy Euro Vital Lacerda game. Would you like to play one versus many? No.
Right.
Well, what if the expansion offered that? Okay, no one's playing it.
And then one of them is a new solo.
Yep. And then a second cooperative. So it's mostly cooperative. The other, the chapter 3 is about blackouts. It's not bad. Nope. Like, it's not the worst, thing in the world. I just think that, honestly, for how excited I was, because I felt On Mars needed to be cooperative, it missed the mark.
Yep.
Because I guess in my head I was thinking, oh, he's going to use all these unique rules to make it cooperative, but we're still going to play it like on Mars.
Right.
And you don't. At least what you're doing, I mean, you do have to. You still have to build the buildings to bump this up, to build up your colony, but it doesn't really matter. Like,
yeah.
You're not doing it for any real reason except to just meet an objective.
Right.
And the outside source of everything that the cooperative, like the game going against you, just wasn't. I didn't even really find it thematic.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't.
It was kind of like, okay, there's just some vague.
And the fact that you have to, like, so you have a pandemic, but we have to boost the colonies, like, you know, size. Why?
Yeah.
In a game that is super thematic.
Right.
Like, you know, colonizing Mars for just the base game. Super thematic. Of course, yeah, we're all working to basically boost up Mars and make it better.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. Here it was kind of just because you had to accomplish the goal that we were given because we couldn't get enough of the blueprints to
there's only 2 new blueprint cards. It would have been much better if, like, for this chapter, like, it was like, hey, here's chapter 2 blueprints. Boom. Like, here's new level 1s, new level 2s, or new level 3s, and then now you want to look at all of them instead of just being like, well, the 2 blueprints are on the top,
right?
So they're going to be out. That's all you're going to get, and now we got to get the level 3 out, and you're not even going to use it. Right. That's the thing. Is like, in what world are you leveling this up first to get to the level 3 building to actually utilize the ability?
I don't know.
Because that's what I was thinking. It's like, when you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, vaccines, that would be super helpful.
Right.
Like, if they were getting pumped out, that they never get,
But why are you going to build this one and, you know, build this and 2 other hospitals first, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know.
It's like, I don't know. I mean, because I don't know if we're just missing some key element.
Right.
But because you don't have to survive, I mean, you have to survive at least 12 rounds, unless you lose. But by that point, you're gonna. I mean, if this was the first objective you aimed for, then maybe. Because then you have that one, okay, yeah, if you go for that one first, you have to bump the colony up, and then if for some reason you're not getting the tech, I don't know, because that's super easy too. It's not the hardest thing in the world to get a tech all the way to the end.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's your goal in a regular game of On Mars, it takes some time, and you have to hope that others aren't also grabbing these before you can.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, in a regular game, you're competing for a resource.
Right.
Because it's cooperative. I'm not going to go for those tokens. Even if we did, there's 2 of them anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not. But realistically, I'm accomplishing something else because you're going for that.
Yeah.
And that's your focus.
Right. It's like, okay, those are our 2 objectives. I can do this one. You can do that one. Okay. Right. that was that.
Right.
I don't know. And I don't like sitting around and talking about, like, ways that the game could be better, because it's not that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is just kind of an expansion that I don't want to explore any further. I don't have any interest in the Blackout chapter or the 1 vs. Many for sure. Even though that theme sounds the coolest.
Right, the theme sounds great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's like, you know what? I think I'll just keep with my vanilla On Mars competitive, and if I want to play cooperative, I'll just play the solo variant with someone else. Because that was just, I highly recommend that if you're looking, because it was just so much fun to kind of come up with ideas and utilizing certain blueprints to outdo the AI.
Right.
Versus whatever this was.
So if we play with more than 2 people, I know that board flips. What happens when that board flips? Does something worse happen to us? No, that's the alien board. So I think it's just, we must just have less time.
Where was that? Chapter 2. So that's for the solo. So this stays on 12, but in a 3-player game it starts at 10, in a 4-player game it starts at 8.
Okay.
And then technically you could flip this and make it 12 people get infected, which, I mean, Yeah, that I mean, in a higher player count game, I can see this game being harder because that's more people for the infection deck to go through, and infect, and that's more people going around, therefore getting infected. So this could just be also one of those that it's like not great for 2. It's like super easy at 2 as a cooperative, which I don't like. Like the greatest cooperative game scale for number of players, I think Pandemic, if we're going off the Outbreak theme, scales super well for 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, however many people you want to have. So, yeah, what a disappointment. That sucks. All right, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give On Mars Alien Invasion? At least the chapter 2.
I keep debating. It's 4 or 5, honestly, for me.
Really?
At best, because I don't want to play it again. So I think it's a 4.
4?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 5. I think it's a whatever expansion. At least that particular chapter. I mean, hell, even whenever I was first, because I backed this obviously immediately when I saw that it was being announced, and then whenever it came in, I was like, oh, it's not fully cooperative. At least not the whole thing, which was, I was like, whatever. But, I mean, it's serviceable. I wouldn't say, oh, buy On Mars to play it cooperatively.
Right.
Like, I think that you can, especially with how expensive these games are, it's like you can get way better cooperative games. And if you're wanting the theme, then get the 7 expansions of Pandemic that completely fit this. So, yeah, I think I'm sitting at a 5. I can definitely see a 4 if I were to go off base, like, disappointment of, like, damn it. But
yeah, that's why it's like a 5, because it is still On Mars. It's still a good, solid game. But just because I think if somebody said, hey, do we want to play On Mars cooperatively? It's like, no, let's just play On Mars.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is why it's a 4.
Yeah. And also, because in most cooperative games, there's ways to scale based off, oh man, this was actually easy. Oh, let's go to the next difficulty. Because of the expansion, the way it was made, it's so limited.
Yeah.
The only thing is, oh, instead of 14, it's 12.
Right.
That's really it. Or have more people.
Right.
So even if we found this like easy, it was like, I don't know. It also didn't have that crunch time at first. Like whenever it got to 6, I'm like, huh. But then, yeah, from that point on, halfway, I was like, oh no, never mind, we got it.
Yeah.
Like there's, we can do enough steps to be able to just get the blueprint we need, just to whatever. Just it was just a checklist.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh man, like, because I've had crunch times of Pandemic.
Right.
I was like, okay. Like, we start doing things, you're like, nope, okay, let's move it all back, let's think.
Right, and because of the randomness of Pandemic, like, because it's a deck of cards that then randomize where tokens come out, here, this wasn't painful enough.
Yeah.
And so the randomness of this didn't cause stress on what the board state was.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that infection deck, if it decommissioned, like if it was like, oh, if you have an infected worker here, then he no longer produces. If you have an infected worker here, but then they couldn't do that because of the nature of the infected person infects everything.
Right.
Then you just wouldn't be able to play.
Right.
But what they could have done again is instead of infecting all of them, it infects one other person. If they wanted to go the decommission route. So if I had 3 people here, and one of them was infected, okay, he's useless. But instead of infecting all of them at the end of my turn, he infects one. So now 2 of them are useless. And then now it incentivizes you to want to go out and get medicine. And be like, shit, I want to stay over here. There's a medicine over here. Let me come back, get the medicine, heal one, so that now I can do whatever.
Right.
I really want this guy to be able to work and be in the mine. So I want to use it to heal him so I can shuttle and get my mineral.
Right.
I think that would actually put a lot of crunch. But yeah, I think this is also a weak element of just a number of infected workers. That's just it.
Yep.
And it's whatever. So yeah, I'm just still. Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a 5.
Yep.
I was like, oh man, I might lower it. It is kind of a whatever expansion.
I mean, 5's
Five's still not great.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's our thoughts on Mars: Alien Invasion or Outbreak. Let us know what you think of the expansion in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.